Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Maxed Out Radio. Minasan konnichiwa. Maxed Out Radio no aratana episode of Yokoso. It's very, very exciting. We have some mail to go over, and that is what I dedicated this first portion of the radio show to be dedicated to, as we went over in the first episode. That episode was a little bit unstructured. This one's going to be a little bit better. I've got things a little more figured out this time around. So we have some questions to answer off of the start, so we're gonna go ahead and get into those. Let me pull them up. A lot of you guys left some wonderful comments on the first episode, so I highly encourage you, because it's such a new series, to leave your questions or comments, whatever, in the comments section, and then once it grows bigger, we'll transition it over to the email. But you can still send the emails in. That will be provided in the description. So I do read the comments, so I just want to encourage you to leave a comment if you have any questions that want to be answered or anything you just want to say in general about the story. So I just wanted to mention that I do read the comments. So, all right, let's get started with the first email, our one and only email we got from the last episode from Connor. Connor-san. Thank you, Connor, for sending in an email. And he says, "Hi, Max, up-and-coming manga artist and creator of Maxed Out. Get me on the pod. Have a great day, Kana." You know me. I'm open to it. You know me. Just hit me up and we'll set it up and we can chat. We can chat anime stuff and it'll just be wonderful. Share some lovely stories and stuff. So we might have our first guest, guys. We might have our first guest. Connor is somebody I know, so that's why that could potentially be something in the future. I think that would actually be really funny. So thank you, Connor, for the email. Okay, we have some lovely comments, though. So there's a great, okay, settle down, Max. There is a great question that I do want to answer in here, but we'll get to that. So a couple of comments that I wanted to go over. Turbo Penguin saying awesome. Michael227 saying let's go. Thank you for that. We have another comment here. What a fun podcast. Looking forward to the story development of Max and her bandmates. Thank you so much. And then another one from Undying Life here. What a great episode. Definitely can't wait for this manga to drop. And then they went on to say that I did do somewhat okay in my Japanese, which is good. I tried to improve it for the intro of this episode. And then we have this question here that I really wanted to answer. As let me actually just turn the music off as we get into this. So this is a huge one for me. And that is, what did you pick as your first guitar and why did you pick it? So we're going to spend a couple minutes talking about this because this is such an amazing thing. Excuse me for one moment here. I just had breakfast. I'm finding it very difficult to talk right now, but this is a radio show, right? So I'm keeping everything in. I'm not cutting anything out. So my first guitar was actually an Epiphone Les Paul Special 2, and I picked it because it was really cheap. So I got it secondhand for I think about $80 or $85, and that was maybe about a year ago. I think it was probably in August, so a little bit earlier than a year. And I originally only started playing the guitar because I watched Bocchi the Rock, and I was like, oh, playing the guitar actually looks really fun. And, I was already so into music anyways, and I was like, it wouldn't hurt to try learning another instrument, right? It would be kind of fun to do that. And so what I ended up doing was buying that guitar. But I absolutely, excuse me, jeez. What I ended up doing was I absolutely fell in love with playing the guitar. I did not think that I was going to love playing the guitar as much as I did, but I absolutely loved it. I mean, like, I don't think I've missed a day of playing the guitar since probably a week after I picked it up. Like, I'm not even exaggerating. I play the guitar every single day. I absolutely love it. And I pretty much transitioned from electronic music to J-rock because of it. And it's, why I picked that guitar was because I just wanted something to get me into the hobby and not have to drop a lot of money. So like when you pick up a new hobby. I think it can be a little tempting sometimes to like really dive headfirst into something and want to spend, a lot of money on something really nice. But I just wanted to see if I liked it first. And so I didn't buy anything super expensive. But I did a lot of research to find like what was a good beginner guitar that wasn't going to be like, just terrible to play and not any fun at all. And most people redirected to something of that nature. And so I just picked that one because it was the beginner guitar, and that a lot of people said is good value for money. And it was a great instrument at the start. It was a good instrument to learn on. But after that, once I started writing songs and trying to get that professional grade sound, I know I haven't shared any of the songs for this story yet, but they are being written, and I've been writing them for almost about a year now. So there's been a lot of progression. And once I was able to achieve that close to professional grade sound, it was only after I upgraded instruments, because cheap guitars have different pickups on them, which are usually lower quality, which means the sound output that you get in I use FL Studio to write my songs, but the output that you get in FL Studio, or input, I guess, isn't exactly the best quality with those cheaper guitars, because the pickups are quite limiting. And so, I had to eventually move on to buying a nicer guitar, which is when I bought my Yamaha Pacifica. And I just absolutely love that guitar, and it was 100% worth it. The sound quality difference is insane, and it's much nicer to play. It doesn't hurt my hands as much. The Epiphone was really good as like a beginner guitar because I just wasn't that good yet, so I couldn't really move my hands very fast. But once I started improving and getting a lot better, the guitar actually became quite uncomfortable to play, and I was cutting my fingers a lot on the fretboard because it was just very sharp, like on the edges where the metal dividers are. And that does not happen on the Yamaha. It's a much more smooth fretboard, and I don't hurt my hands and fingers as much playing that guitar. It's just much nicer. And so that was my journey of how I went through and picked that guitar and eventually upgraded to the next one. And because of that, I basically just started writing J-rock music every single day. Like, I just absolutely loved it, and I'd never expected that to happen at all. So it's a wild thing that happens in life, I think, sometimes, is you go down a path and you try something new, and then you end up actually really, really falling in love with it. And it's just crazy how things like that happen. So I wanted to talk about that for a minute, because it's just like really interesting to try something new, like not knowing how it's going to pan out, and then it end up becoming like one of your favorite things ever. I think just for me personally, like when I was a kid, I can remember learning to play hockey. I know we talked about this a little bit in the last episode, but hockey's a big part of my life, as you can tell. I absolutely loved ice hockey growing up, and all I ever wanted to do was skate. And, I can remember stories of my parents telling me, like, I was very much a homebody kid. I did not like to leave the house. But when it came to hockey, I would wake up at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning for practice without question. And I would hop right out of bed and just go straight to the rink because I just loved playing hockey. And I remember that when I was a kid, and the reason I'm bringing this up was I didn't have to like when I did it for the first time, I didn't know what it was going to be like, and I didn't know if I was going to like it. But granted, you're a kid and you think a little differently, right? It's not as deep and not as emotionally invested, but it's kind of similar to my journey with the guitar. Like I went into it because I wanted to try it, and I didn't know what it was going to be like, and then it ended up becoming probably one of, if not my favorite thing that I've done in my life so far. And it turned into such an incredible journey, and it was all just kind of a decision that I made on the whim, right? But I would say it's granted more towards my parents. They made that decision for me, right? Because when you're 7 years old, like, you can't just decide you want to play hockey and then pay, however much money it costs to play in a league, right? Obviously your parents would have to help you with that at that age. But, just the thought of wanting to play introduced that world to me. And I think of the guitar situation kind of the same way. Although I'm an adult now, right, and I can pay for things myself, it's like I picked up the guitar because I wanted to try it and just see what it was like. And I ended up falling in love with it. And it is basically what birthed this story. The whole reason I wrote this story was because I wanted to give myself a way to write J-rock music that was more than just writing music. I could write something else around it and really allow people to be invested in it. And, I can pretty much just say thank you to the guitar for that, because had I not learned how to play the guitar, it would have not been possible. And it's such an amazing journey that I've gone down, and, it opened me up to a whole new world, which I just was not familiar with. I never really listened to rock music or instrumental. I mean, this music is instrumental, but I bring up the instrumental part because J-rock in instrumental form is very complex. And I just find it so interesting to like figure all that stuff out and, learn how to play these songs, and it makes me a better artist and whatnot. So, it's amazing to watch yourself go down a path of discovering something new. So I will say I highly, highly recommend that if you've been wanting to try something new or, just start a new hobby or something, and you've kind of been on the fence about it and you don't really know if you want to do it or not, I say you should go in head first and at least try it, because you can figure out if you like it or you don't like it. And, I don't think there's any downside to trying something and failing at it. You just, I don't think the right word is fail. Like, you didn't fail at something. You just figured out that it's not for you or you don't like it, right? And, I've done that many, many times in my life. Played a lot of sports. There were sports that I didn't like and I never wanted to go to practice. And then, there were sports that I liked and really, really loved. And music was the same way. There's genres that I tried that I didn't like, and other genres that I tried that I really fell in love with. So I think that's all part of life, is walking through those steps and figuring out the things that you like and the things you don't like. And, finding out how to like navigate through that to give yourself the best chance of success in whatever path you decide to go down. So I really, really like that question, because although it was a simple question on the surface, there was a lot more to it, and I really wanted to talk about that. So thank you, Ultra Cart Things, for that question. That was awesome. So, all right, transitioning on to the next part of the show, which would be talking about the book. So let's talk about where the book is at right now. So we're not going to reveal anything about the story itself, right? I don't want to spoil the story for you, but a lot of this radio show is to talk about the process of how I'm writing the book and writing the music. And right now, I actually had a huge inspiration surge, which is something I wanted to talk about that I didn't get a chance to in the last episode because I literally just forgot. So these first, I'm going to say first 5 or 10 episodes are going to be a little all over the place, and it's not going to be like super structured, but I do plan to have a sampler in the future for sound effects and stuff, and so we can transition smoothly from one segment to another. But I just really have not figured out how to do that yet, which is a little sad because I'm pretty technically savvy, so I really got to get on that. But I'll try to figure that out for the next episode. But let's talk about the book here. So the book itself, right now, I think I'm 50 pages in now. Page 51, 52. So a little bit more progress has been made since the last episode. I think about 5 pages. I think I was on page 45 when I recorded the first episode, or maybe a little before that. It's just right now there's kind of still that introductory phase in the story. So, obviously manga, it goes by very fast when you read it. So 50 pages is more like 10 pages if it was like a written novel, just because you do a lot of storytelling with pictures and not so much text. And so I've been finding it really difficult to balance like what I need to show as just pictures and what I need to show as text, and like trying to figure out if the reader can understand what I'm writing. It's really challenging to find that balance. But this is one thing that is very nerdy about me that I'm not afraid to admit, is that when I'm watching anime, I love watching anime. I'm definitely a slice of life guy. I prefer more chill shows. I'm not really into like shonen battle stuff. But when I watch anime, whatever genre it is, regardless of that, I find that I always am studying what I'm watching because I'm writing my own anime. Like, I want to make it the best it can possibly be. So I can't just like watch a show for enjoyment anymore. I'm like sitting there, watching this on my iPad at like 2:00 in the morning in my bed. And I'm like studying every single thing that happens in the show. I'm like, oh, would that be good and maxed out? Like, oh, could I, develop the story in this way? Or like when a character says something and I find it very meaningful, like I store it in this bank in my head. I'm like, oh, I remember when that character said that, like that was really impactful in that scene. So I need to like remember that and do something along those lines. And I've been like doing that for like 8 months now, just picking out like all these. I almost want to say like that, like I'm super, super hard on myself with everything that I do. And I've always been that way. I'm definitely, and I hate to admit it, but I'm definitely an overachiever because I just want to be really, really good at everything I do. And I don't know why that happens. I don't know what causes that. But because of that, I find it very hard to enjoy anything that I'm doing, like just leisurely, if that makes sense. So like the reason I'm bringing that up is I can't just like watch anime and not relate it to maxed out of what I'm writing, because when I'm watching it, I'm constantly trying to improve what I'm writing, because at the end of the day, these anime that are getting aired are professional stories. And so I want to have that professional grade quality in my story as well. And so I'm kind of like collecting, I would say, the best moments from every show that I watch and trying to include that in the story that I'm writing. But it is very difficult when you do that with a manga, because a manga is not an anime, right? I think an anime, because it's a moving piece, it's, a motion picture. There's just, and it has audio as well, right? You can just impact things a lot more that way. And so for you readers that are anticipating this manga coming out, I really want to emphasize the fact of how serious I've taken this project, because it is something that kind of came up out of nowhere. I know a lot of my subscribers from my other channels never really saw any of this happening because it was something that kind of just came up out of nowhere. But I have taken it extremely, extremely serious. And the biggest thing about it is, like, when writing a manga, like, it's difficult to get across that same emotion as when you're watching something like an anime. And so I wrote this manga in a way that would be very easily adapted to anime form. And I did that intentionally to give it its best success of getting an anime adaptation. So every panel that I've written or drawn was done from the start intentionally, of me thinking, okay, if this was animated, what would it look like? And is the animator going to be able to interpret what I'm trying to get across here? So there is not a single panel in this manga that was drawn of me just thinking, okay, what's the best panel to draw here? Like what's the best just static frame? Because, like, although manga and anime are different, I wanted to almost combine the two in a sense of, like, if a studio was to read my book, it would be easy for them to adapt it into anime form. Because when I wrote this story, I didn't intentionally write it to be a manga at the start. And this is something I've actually discussed with my mom quite a bit. I've had lots of conversations with her on the phone about this, but I've never talked about it on the radio show, even though we're only 2 episodes in. But when I wrote this story, I wrote it as an anime. I didn't write it as a manga. And so for me, having to transition it from manga form is quite challenging, because I feel like at times I can't get across the impact that I was originally intending. And this is a difficult thing to explain, but there's just some anime that you watch that just have such strong impact in certain scenes. And, whether it be really, really beautiful moments, really happy moments, really sad moments, whatever it is, oftentimes a lot of those moments don't have dialogue in them, or, they do, but it's because they're paired with music or the visuals of, moving scenes and whatnot. And so trying to capture that in still form is a very, very difficult thing. And, one of the things I talked to my mom about is I almost visualized myself as the director of this series instead of just the manga artist. And so, if it ever does get to the stage of a anime adaptation, I think one of the strongest qualities I have is that I'm very creatively versed. And, I know it sounds like I'm floating my own boat here, chill out for a second. I promise I'm not. But, it's important to acknowledge the strengths in yourself. I would like to say that for sure. You shouldn't always beat yourself up. If you're strong in something, you should acknowledge that with yourself. So one of my strengths is I'm very creatively versed. So by that, I just mean, I do a lot of drawing. I do a lot of music stuff and other things as well. And just being able to visualize, what something would look like in anime form is very important for me. And so seeing, I guess what I'm trying to say is like, I saw myself as like a director in the sense of like, I could oversee everything, but not in the way of like trying to take control. Like if a studio picked up this story, like the directors of it are going to be better than me because they're professionals, right? But an advantage to maybe other manga artists, I would think, is that for me, when I wrote this story, it was very clear what I wanted from the start. And so it's one of the main reasons why I've been trying to learn Japanese, is because I want to be able to communicate with the team and the staff in the future to let them know and guide them in the right direction of like, this is what I envisioned, to make it easier for them so they don't have to create something out of, just the source material. And because, I think one of my strengths is that I'm creatively versed, like especially with the music, because I'm a professional musician, I can write all the music for the show, which is, so cool to me. And it's one of the reasons why I wanted to write an anime about music, was so that I could have that impact on it, because I really do deep down just love writing music. And whether it be just soundtracks, like just background music that goes in the scenes, or if it's actual songs for the band, like I can do all of that stuff. And I have so much fun doing that kind of thing. And so if my story ever got to the anime adaptation stage, I would love to write the music for it in that sense. And, it's also, it would just be amazing to see like how a studio would interpret my work and what they would visualize, maxed out to become. And so I'm very faithful in this project. I have a lot of hope in it, as I'm sure you can tell. And I think that's vital when you're trying something. When you're trying to push something to a successful level that a lot of people are going to see, there's going to be a lot of self-doubt that comes in. Like I've definitely had moments where I thought that, this just wasn't going to become anything and I was never going to finish it. And it went through so many rough drafts and I really questioned what I was doing for a long time. And, it sounds silly, but I wanted to give up many, many times, and I can probably name at least 15 different points where I was physically drawing and then telling myself, this is just a dumb story. Like, there's just no reason for me to continue doing this. Like, this is just stupid. It doesn't make any sense. It's not funny. Whatever. My mom's heard all about it on the phone whenever I'm talking to her drawing. And it's important to fight through those moments and overcome those challenges. And, sometimes I would have to take a break because it got so bad. Like I was just sitting there, just beating myself up thinking this was the worst story ever. And I had to reset myself for 24 hours, and then come back. And then you kind of realize that the work that you did was a little better than you thought it was. And then every day, like, I just kind of built on that and kept improving on that until I got to a point where I was comfortable with what I was creating. And now I would say, like, I'm kind of at the stage where I don't think my drawings can improve drastically like they were. So at the start, when I made the manga, like, my drawings were really weak. And I had only been drawing for, 1-2 months when I started the manga. And my improvement was happening so rapidly. Like, I was just getting so much better every week that I kept having to redraw pages, and my story writing as well. Like, I had never written a story before this, although I had, like, maybe concepted short stories or done things for YouTube videos that I guess you could relate to stories. Like, I had never actually written a story that someone would read. And so I was very new and inexperienced in that. And so there was just so much improvement happening at the start. Like, I was just constantly improving. And that led to me beating myself up a lot, and why I'm talking about this. But because of that, I got to a point where I wasn't really improving as quickly as I was, especially now. Like, of course, you're going to keep getting better at something the more and more you do it. So, I'm going to keep improving as I keep going on. But it's just that the improvement isn't as drastic as it was. I'm not like, I'm sure you understand what I'm trying to say. And because of that, I found it very difficult to almost progress in a way. And so, like, I got to a point where, like, I hit this wall in the story where I was like, I just don't know if this is a good story anymore, or if I should release this. But I've just kind of realized that it was, like, all in my head. And when you're writing something creative, like, you spend a lot of time with yourself just analyzing what you're creating. And you don't realize that when someone is going to read or look at your creative work, that's going to be their first time seeing it when they pick it up. They haven't invested hundreds of hours into it like you have. For music, I could argue maybe it's a little less. Like, when I was writing my EDM songs, it took maybe about 50 hours to write one song. And I think music has to pass a test of, I call it the, I guess you could call it like the, maybe, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a does it get boring test. And what I do is just play songs on repeat over and over and over again. And because of that, I found that you can essentially tell whether a song is boring or not, but you can't do that with a manga. And I had a really hard time accepting that. Sorry if I'm talking a little slow here. I just had breakfast and I've been drinking this Monster, and it's making me bubbly right now. Like, I've had to burp so bad for about the past 20 minutes. I've been trying to hold it in, and I just can't hold it anymore. So I apologize. I'm trying to collect myself here. Okay. But honestly and truthfully, like, it is really difficult to do that with a manga. Like, I can't seem to pass the is it boring test, but I've definitely improved in my story writing to the point where, like, when I look at my old pages that aren't going to get released, I can tell my story was not that exciting and it wasn't that great, and there was room for improvement. But now, I can't visualize and see that improvement as clearly as I did at the start. And so it's a little bit harder to rework and re-edit my own things now. But I think that's a good sign, because it's not as obvious anymore. And that definitely means that, whether I'm conscious of it or not, I have improved 100%, because it was very clear when there was mistakes or the story's flow was just off and it just didn't work. But now it's not as clear anymore, which means that, even then, like, if I read a story that I wrote, put it away for a week, and then reread it again, and I find it entertaining, that should be a good indicator that someone that's going to read it for the first time is going to find it entertaining. So It's been a challenge, and I went on a huge rant there. But the point I wanted to get across was that I have been using other anime to really influence my story a lot. And it's so crazy, the inspiration that you can get from just watching other shows. Like, some of them are just completely unrelated to, the type of, I mean, just to begin with, there's not that many anime about music. So it's already a very narrow genre. I don't think my story is that similar to Bocchi the Rock. It may appear that way to people from the outside just because of the character designs, but my character designs actually aren't based off of Bocchi the Rock. My character designs are actually loosely based off of my dear friend Nokotan, and that was the art style and route that I went down, because I although that show was okay and it was funny until about maybe the last 4 episodes, I thought were a little kind of tapered off a bit, but the art style I really liked. And I kind of pictured my story to have an art style and characters like that, but the color palette to be different. Like, I kind of liked, I watched a show called Do It Yourself, DIY, and it was like pastel colored. And it seems like a lot of shows nowadays are moving towards that pastel color palette. And I really like that. I feel like it matches my story very nicely. And so when I'm making the color illustrations and, essentially what I'm going to do is create a lot of concept art for what this story would look like as an anime. And that'll be once I, get close to finishing the book. I'll release all that stuff for you guys to see. But, I've pretty much decided on using a pastel color palette style because, at the same time, just because it's an anime about music, like, it's already going to be compared to Bocchi the Rock or K-On! Or stuff like that, because there's just not that many anime about music. I can't even think of like 5 on my hand right now. I can think of maybe like 4. Not that it's not, not that they're not good or not popular. It's just that, there's already so many limited anime about music. And there's even more limited anime about J-Rock. So, having it be about that, like, it's just automatically going to get compared to that stuff. And, I've very carefully written this story to make sure that I don't cross that line of like, okay, am I copying those stories or am I like too similar to those stories? Because it's a very fine line to walk. And you want the viewer or the reader to, be reading your story for the first time and not feel like they're reading something else, right? Like they're reading something they've already read before. You want it to be new and fresh for them. And so I've, taken a lot of thought and consideration into that to making sure it's not too similar to Bocchi the Rock and other shows like that. But also at the same time, making sure that it does pay homage to those shows and reference them, because it did have such an influential part of my life. And it was the whole reason this story started in the first place. But I think, the unique thing about Maxed Out for me and why I'm so passionate about it is because it's a story about, my journey with music and, just what music means to me and the amazing things that music can do. And yes, Bocchi the Rock played a part of that, and, it's such a wonderful anime, but at the same time, that story is its own story and its own unique thing that happened, and for me, a lot of what happened in that story didn't happen to me personally, so, I can't really connect with it on that deep personal level, whereas Maxed Out is a story that I've written, based on my musical journey. And so I have a very deep connection to it. I understand my story through and through because I lived through a lot of those things. And so the target, demographic, I think, for this story, while I think the story is actually for everybody, I think it's funny enough that anyone can watch it and they'll enjoy it. I say watch it like like this is getting animated. I want to make it very clear right now that there is no plans for this to be animated at any point right now. I'm going to need a lot of help from, you guys and anyone that reads manga, and basically just anybody that takes part in this story, to basically get this to a point where it can become something that can be animated, because there's no plans for this to be animated at all. Right now, this is just a manga, and it's just the music that I'm going to be releasing on Spotify and stuff. But I really want to emphasize the fact, I know I said it earlier, I intended this to be an anime when I wrote it. I didn't intend it for it to just be a manga. My end goal is to watch this in moving form and become something that is something you can watch. And so I really, really, really want to emphasize that. So that's why I keep saying, like, when you watch it, or, things like that, is because, that was how I wrote it originally. And so, I think it's so important to, even the reason I bring that up is, it's like, even though it is a manga, and I didn't intend it to be a manga at the start, like, I wrote it. Man, I keep burping. Okay, next time I gotta warn myself, do not drink a Monster before I record a podcast episode, because I can't stop burping. I'm like out of control right now. Okay, when you write, or when I was writing this, right, and I intended it to be an anime, I don't want it to come across as like I didn't try on the manga portion of it because I intended for it to be an anime. It's just that I intended for it to be an anime, but I still am trying 110% on the manga part, because, I was so new to this world. I didn't know how anime was made to begin with, so I had to learn about that. And then I realized that a lot of it comes from source material, and sometimes it's just ideas that are pitched by creators and whatnot. But I wanted my story to be in all different types and forms. And so that's why I decided to do it the way that I did. Oh my goodness. Whew. This Monster is taking me out. I'm never drinking a Monster before a podcast episode again. I got way too much air in my stomach right now. So essentially, that's what's going on with the story. And how long have we been going for? Only 30 minutes. I feel like I could go for like another 20 minutes here. So yeah, I mean, let me know your guys' thoughts about that. I think it's probably interesting to hear it from, the creator's perspective and what the actual goals are. And, I don't know if it's something that's been done before. I don't know how many foreigners have gotten their own anime before. I'm sure a few have had it done. I mean, the biggest thing with the manga, right, that I've had plenty of discussions about with my mom. I'm mentioning my mom a lot in this episode, but that's just because she's been very helpful in the process so far of just having a different set of eyes on it and different set of ears. And just, it's so important to, when you're doing something creative, to just have different input from somebody else at some point, because it just allows you to see different avenues and different options that you had never considered before. And, whether you decide to go down the road of what their criticism led to, or, not, I don't think really is all that important. It's more of the fact that it just opens your mind to new things and seeing things from a different perspective. And so that's why I do a lot of consulting with my mom on the phone about this story, because she does not read manga or, watch any anime. If she has watched an anime, it's because, I watched it with her and I essentially forced her to watch it with me. Like, my mom watched Free Run with me, and I think she quite enjoyed that show, and she watched Bocchi the Rock with me. But as far as I know, that's the only two anime she's seen. She might have seen a couple others, but having that different set of eyes really opens you to a new perspective. And I think it's important to have that different perspective. So, with that, it's just difficult to understand where the story is going in that sense, like in the anime form. I think that's something that'll happen naturally, and it's going to need help from a lot of other people to get it to that point. But this is where I bring that point in of having faith in the projects that you're working on. A lot of the times it's very unknown how things are going to happen, but if you have a clear goal, you should keep pursuing it and keep chipping away at it, and you'll get there. I mean, that's something you see a lot in life from a lot of people, is the people that make it to the successful parts of their craft or the top parts of their craft. It's people that stuck with it and endured those trials for long periods of time before they made it to the top. And so that's why while I would love to see this get animated as soon as possible, it's something that could take 5 to 10 years to come out. I mean, 10 years is a little excessive, right? But we're just going to keep pushing it. We'll just hope that it can, reach that point as soon as possible. And, it's important to have that faith in yourself and the work that you're doing. And why I went on that whole tangent in the first place was I don't want it to seem like this is something that has been very easy for me, even with the limited things that are available to you. I know from your guys' perspective watching this, it's probably hard to understand where I'm at with the story, right? There just hasn't been that many things that you've been able to see. This radio show is one of the only things that's public about this story right now. And so I'm sure it's hard for you to visualize where I'm at with the story and just how much care and effort and thought has been put into it. And so when it does come out, I hope it can resonate more with you in the sense of you'll be able to see how much I loved this work that I was writing. Because I really have put so much effort into it. And it's the reason I bring that up is it's important to not let the negative side of your mind take over that and take away the hard work that you've put into it. You should believe in yourself. And, if you have something like what I'm doing, a creative work that you've been working on for a long time, believe in yourself that it will become something great and have that passion to keep pursuing it. And, you'd be surprised how life kind of works out for you in that way. There's many things that I've done before that have had, great turnarounds like that. And it all just came from, just continuing to pursue something over and over and over again until it finally ended up, coming true. So it's not easy by any means. It can be very difficult to get to that point. So I did want to, mention a lot of that stuff about the story because, that's kind of where I'm at right now. I think, I keep getting so lost in you know what I need to do for the next episode? I need to have like a notepad on the screen and just write all of the points that I want to talk about, because I've noticed a lot, and I do apologize for this in this episode. I've been circling back, or like I'll mention something and then I'll just completely forget about what I was talking about like 2 minutes later. So I'm sorry. I know I probably pissed somebody off listening to this while I was doing that. I didn't do it intentionally. I just need to be a little bit more structured here. So that's where we're at with the story. I'm still going to stick with the deadlines that I've said, which are going to be around August, maybe. So that's about 3 months from now until you'll probably be able to read the first chapter. It might even be before that. I just don't know. It's so up in the air right now. But I have started redrawing the first chapter, so that's always a good sign. And I think the first volume is going to be around 150 to 170 pages long, so typical manga length. And then, of course, we have to wait for the music, because that's something that I want to have ready for you guys when it comes out. So that's essentially it with the story. There is some couple things I wanted to go over, so let's transition to the next segment, which was our Japanese lesson. I'd said every episode I was going to do a Japanese lesson, and we have to continue with that. The last one was terrible. I did some preparation for this one, and so today I will be saying one sentence, and I will tell you what it is after. I'm going to give it my best shot here. It's going to be a little difficult, but I'll try my best. All right, you ready? Here we go. Watashi wa maxed out no ongaku o tsukuteiru. I think. I'm going to try one more time. Watashi wa maxed out no ongaku o tsukuteiru. I think I said I'm making the music for Maxed Out. I think it was a little off, but the key word for that one is ongaku, which means music, and tsukuteiru means I'm making it, right? I think tsukuru isn't tsukuru to make tsukuru. I'm pretty sure. So tsukuteiru would be the conjugation of that, right? I think that's because I don't know. I could be totally lying right now, but I'm pretty sure tsukuru is to make, and I know for a fact ongaku is music. And so I think I said I'm making the music for Max Out. So that's my Japanese lesson for today. Watashi wa maxed out no ongaku o tsukuteiru. My accent is a little bad, but we're getting somewhere. It's better than the last episode. The last episode was awful in that segment. This one was much better. Let's see if I can find some questions to answer. I'm going to do a little quick search here. I'm going to see if I could find that Reddit post. And we're going to answer some more questions from this. I won't do as many as I did last time, because that was kind of a disaster. I went on that for like 30, 40 minutes. Where was I? I was at like 100 and something, right? So I'll do like 20 to 30 of these. Okay. Where should we start? Okay, what is something that's difficult for you but easy for most other people? Oh, what a great question. Oh, what's really difficult for me? I don't know. I feel like I don't really like struggle that much at stuff. Okay, definitely growing up, it was like my homework in school. Like I never did my homework. I was just, I would come home from school and just did whatever I wanted after that. Like I missed my homework almost all the time, but it was so weird because like I wasn't a bad student. So like I followed all the rules in school. And I did pretty okay on my tests and stuff and got decent grades. But it was like I never did my homework. So my grades were always like just subpar or below average because I never did my homework. But like on tests and stuff and worksheets, like I always did fine. So that was one thing that was difficult for me growing up. What are you glad you learned as a child? I think how to treat other people, right? Like, I don't know. That's just one thing that comes to mind right off the top of my head that I didn't have to think about. What is something you had to learn the hard way? That even if you're naturally talented at something, you still got to work for it. I think that is the biggest thing I ever learned. That's another thing that comes from when I was playing sports. This circles back to what I said earlier in the radio show where I was talking about like when you're, trying new things and I know I always talk about sports, but I really do mean it. Like hockey was such a big thing for me growing up, and like I just loved hockey, and because of that, I was very lucky to be naturally talented at hockey, but I had a hard realization almost up until I was about 17, where I was naturally talented at hockey, so I didn't have to work that hard to be good at it. Like I was better than most players on the team without having to try because I was naturally talented. But what I didn't realize is as I kept climbing the skill ladder, when I didn't include the hard work. So for example, like I'm talking, and you can relate this to anything you're doing, which is why I'm telling this story. I don't want you to think that this is a podcast about sports or anything like that. You can relate this to music. You can relate this to whatever path you're going down. So I can give you a great example. I'm going to spend a lot of time on this question because I love this question. Because I had to learn this the hard way. When I was 17, I moved on from high school hockey to a different league for a reason that I convinced my parents that I was, and this was, you're going to learn a lot about myself, my younger self. I'm not like this now, but I was when I was younger. I convinced my parents to let me play in a different league because I was set that I was better than the rest of the team around me, but the coach wasn't playing me because he didn't like me or something like that, something along those lines. And so I convinced them to put me in a different league so I could show that I was a better player than the rest of the players around me, which is a very bad mindset to have because that's just not how life works. And so it was like constant grass is greener on the other side syndrome. And so what happened was I then joined that new league. I was 17, probably 17 turning 18 or something like that. This was quite a while ago, so it's hard for me to remember all the details. But essentially, I didn't play. Like, I just didn't get that much ice time in the new league. And it's not because I wasn't that good of a player. Like, I was mid-tier skill for the rest of the players around the other team. The league was definitely better than the high school league I was playing in. So I was playing a step up. But one thing I had to learn the hard way out of that, and it didn't come until after those years, was during that year, I didn't play that much. And I remember being in a playoff game. It was our last game of the season, and I got one shift. And so this was probably, let's see. So this was around April of that year. So hockey playoffs usually take place in the springtime. And, I hadn't played that much all year. I only scored, hockey, it's very hard to score goals in hockey. And so people who score a lot of goals are usually very good. And I was always the goal scorer growing up until I got around high school, maybe my freshman, sophomore year of high school was where that started to tail off really hard. And it was because of what I'm talking about. So what happened was I only scored about 3 goals that year, which was very low for me. Like at least every year I had played hockey, I had scored 10 or more goals. And my freshman year of high school, I only scored like 4 or 5 goals or something like that. My sophomore year of high school, I only scored like 4 or 5 goals, something like that. And so my production was way off. And these are in like, I think it was probably like 25 games played that year, 30 games played that year. And so I was only scoring like once every couple of games. And it's already so hard to score to begin with that like, I thought I didn't. Okay, what I'm trying to portray to you is I didn't younger me didn't understand why this was happening, but older me understands now because I went through a big change. So this is probably the last question I'm going to answer because you'll be able to relate this to anything that you're doing. So then what happens is, I wasn't scoring any goals and I wasn't getting any ice time because I just wasn't really doing anything for the team in the sense of like they would put me out there. And I just didn't really have like a huge impact on the game. So I'm a smaller guy to begin with. And so, hockey is it's a big boys sport. A lot of big guys play hockey, not fat, but tall. Tall and muscular people play hockey. So I was always smaller than everybody. And so for me, the only thing that I could provide in hockey was offense. And when I was not being put on the ice to produce offense, like score goals and get assists and stuff, like I just couldn't really do anything. And so I was put in an environment where I wasn't able to do anything. And I didn't understand that you had to continue working and building up your strength off the ice. And so this is what happened. It's hard for me to explain. So now, okay, you get the gist of what's going on here, right? Like I basically sucked that year, but I didn't understand why, because I was so naturally talented growing up that I never worked for anything in hockey. I never had to work for anything. I could just go on the ice and within a week be better than most of the team. but I didn't realize how much of a hindrance that was until after that year. I didn't realize it during that year. I thought that they just weren't playing me because I was small and that I just wasn't impacting the games or something like that, right? And so we decided to go back to my high school team the following year, and I had a really good year. Like, I played on the top line of the team that year. I scored plenty of goals, had plenty of points. I had a good year. And so I took that as, okay, you know, my year in the different league when I was 17 was just an off year. But then when I was 18 in high school, like, I got back to my normal form. Because the high school had actually promoted a division. And so I was playing to a higher level, but not like the league that I was playing in when I was 17 was still better. But when I returned to high school, like the school had stepped up a division, but it still wasn't at the level I was playing at before, but it was closer and I had a lot more points. So I thought, I was like, okay, I'm ready to continue on. And so basically what happens with hockey is people after high school, if they're good players, they play something called junior hockey, which is it's like a stepping stone into college hockey. And so I had no plans to play junior hockey, and I was playing at a rink, just like skating on my own time, trying to get better, trying to improve, but not like fully invested into it. And the junior hockey coach at that rink saw me skating and essentially asked me to play for their team because they had a lot of injuries, and they were like, yeah, we need someone to step in. Like, are you interested in playing? You look like you're very skilled. And I was like, okay, like, yeah, sure. And so we did that. And this is what I had to learn the hard way was, even though like I would skate on my own time for fun and kind of improve my own game, and I was very naturally talented in that respect, like we've been over that, I didn't work for anything when it came to hockey at that age. And that's what I had to learn the hard way, was when I joined that team, it was 3 steps up from anything I had played before. It was way better than the league that I played when I was 17. And it was definitely way better than the league that I had played in high school. And to put it into perspective for people who maybe don't know about hockey, the people that I was playing with regularly went on to play college hockey, regularly go on to play professional, and even at times made it to the NHL. So there was some serious, serious talent on the ice. It was a very, very high level of hockey. And I was just simply not ready for that. Natural talent cannot get you that far. Everyone in that league that plays in that league took hockey seriously, and they trained their butts off. And so I'm talking about, like, they were in the gym every morning. You know, they ate right, they slept right. And in junior hockey, you're not going to school. Like, all you do is just play hockey. And so essentially my days where I would wake up at 10 o'clock in the morning, you'd go to the rink from 11 to like 1 p.m. and for your practice. And that was it. And then you'd like go to the gym after at the rink. So you literally just played hockey all day. And I absolutely loved it. I mean, I loved it at the time. I would go back and do that in a heartbeat. Because it's basically like a professional hockey simulation. Like, you just do hockey as your life all day. And I didn't realize, like, in that moment, I never touched the ice. The coach never played me for the first like 10 games. I am not exaggerating to you. I did not touch the ice for the first 10 games. I sat on the bench every game and never stepped a foot in the game. And that was the first time that had ever happened to me. And I was so confused as to what was going on. And, you know, I think this is a story that I'll continue in another episode of the podcast because there's just so much to learn from this story. But what happened was this realization of what I had to learn the hard way was that all of these people around me are now naturally talented. I'm not the only one anymore that's naturally talented because we have what has happened was it's no longer the best players from your town. Say when you're playing a high school sport, or when I was playing in a different league, it was like the best players from my general area. It was now the best players from all of the 10 states around me combined into one team. And so what that means is everyone was naturally talented. And then you add the hard work that they put in on top of that, and they were years ahead of me in skill level. And I had to learn the hard way that if I even wanted to touch the ice in any of these games and play, I was going to have to work my butt off to get to that point. And I can confidently tell you, I don't think I've ever worked that hard for anything in my life. I gave it everything, every single practice, and I never improved. Not that I didn't improve at hockey, I definitely got better. That year, I improved so much in hockey that I became 10 times a better player than I ever was when I was in high school and before that. Unrecognizable. I know my parents listen to this radio show, so I will say this simply just for them. If they were to watch me play now, they would not even recognize the same player as what I am now compared to what I was in high school and stuff. Like, I got so much better. It was insane. I couldn't even believe it. But what I'm trying to say is that improvement-wise, relative to everyone else, because they had been doing that their whole lives, I could not catch up to their skill level. They simply were just better than me at all times. And so the coach gave me my chances at different points in the season. As soon as the season was starting to end off, I was given a couple chances here and there. And he actually pulled me aside a couple of times and said he was really impressed with how I had improved. And that my hard work was not going unnoticed. And that, it was actually a talk amongst the team that, the other players were noticing how hard I was working and had spoken to the coach and had asked him to give me some more ice time because they saw it. I was very, very grateful of that. That was the captains and assistant captains that had said that to the coach. And during one of the games, I remember the captains and assistant captains, the people on the top line, they were having a really bad game. And they literally turned around on the bench and told the coach to basically sit them and let my line play so that I could get more ice time. And I remember playing in that game and feeling what it was like to have your hard work pay off. And although that year didn't work out for me, and I'm going to tell this whole story, I know it seems like I told the whole story now. I've probably been going on this for 15 minutes, but although I'm gonna tell the whole story in a different episode because there's just so much to learn from it, and I could go on for like an hour. But being on that ice and seeing your hard work pay off, and like knowing where I was at the start of that season and where I ended up, just really showed me how much of a difference putting in the hard work when you're naturally talented at something and what that can do for you was so eye-opening for me that it started bleeding into every single thing that I did in my life. So, I don't think I'm naturally gifted at drawing or writing anime or stuff like that, but that level of hard work is there because of what I learned from that experience. I learned that sometimes you're gonna really have to dig deep and work for something if you want it. And you may not be very good at it at the start, or there may be people that are better than you or naturally gifted at it. And even if you are naturally gifted at it, there's always going to be somebody that's better than you at it. And you're going to have to work if you want to get to their level, not for a sake of wanting to beat them or be better than them, but for a sake of trying to become the best version of yourself. Because who knows, had I put in, and I can confidently say this, had I put in that hard work, that I was putting in at the end of the season of my year of junior hockey, when I was, say, 13, 14, I think I would have been, far better. I'm not going to say I would have been playing professional hockey, but I think I would have been pretty close to that level because it was that drastic of a difference it made. I felt stronger. My mind was in a better place. I just can't explain to you. And it's the same thing, with music. Like if you were naturally talented at an instrument, like imagine if you were naturally talented at an instrument, but you practice certain techniques and learned how to, play things and just put so much effort into it every single day compared to someone else who only, was maybe naturally talented at it, but only played the instrument for like 20 minutes a day. But instead you played for 2 to 3 hours a day and you did that for years and years on end. Like imagine how good you would become. It's the same situation as the hockey thing that I explained. I put in that hard work for 3 months, maybe. It was a very short period of time in my life. It only lasted about 5 months. The first 2 months were horrible, and the next 3 months were when I put in the hard work. And, I'm telling you straight up how much I improved in those 3 months. Imagine I had been doing that for 10 years. I would be a completely different player. It wouldn't even be recognizable. And that's the kind of effort that I learned the hard way. That's what I had to learn the hard way, is that sometimes you might be good at something at the start, but that doesn't mean you're going to continuously get better at it just because you're naturally talented at it. You got to work for it. You got to dig in and find that extra gear every day if you want to get better and have it become the best version of yourself or the best version of whatever you're doing, because being naturally talented at something is not enough to get you to the top of what it is that you're doing. So, very sport-like mindset for an anime or something like that, but it really is true. And it has carried into this story that I'm writing, because it was so life-changing that it's carried into everything that I do. I take that mindset into everything that I do now because it was that important to me. And, I brought up that story because I wanted to share with you, for those, since there's nothing out yet, and, there's not that many people that watch this radio show right now. But for those that do, I really just want you to learn from that not only can you improve something that you're working on in your life, but just how much effort I have been pouring into this story. Not for a sake of, boasting about myself or wanting it to seem like I'm writing the greatest anime ever. That's not the intent at all. But I just want it to be known that the passion has been there, and I really, really do care about what I'm writing and have tried my absolute hardest to make it the best version that I think it can be. So with that was a lot. That was a lot. Should we end off some funnier questions? I'll read like 2 or 3 more funnier questions, and I think we'll end it off there. What is your least favorite question to answer? Probably tell me about yourself. Like when you're at like a job interview or something like that. Like it's just the worst question ever. It's so bad. It's so bad. What else? Oh, there's so many good ones in here. I don't want to read them. Some of them are like really deep. That's why I don't want to read them. What will always be funny to you? Probably like tripping and falling. I really find that funny when people trip and fall. And here's a great one. Because this is a show about music. What's the last song that got stuck in your head? I actually have no idea how to say the name of this song. So what I'm going to do is translate it for you. I can only read 2 letters in it. which is ku and ka. So I've got to do a little bit of translation here. Give me a second. But it is a Sajo no Hana song, which for those of you who don't speak Japanese, I believe Sajo no Hana means flowers on the sand, or flowers of the sand, or flowers and sand, something of that nature. I'm just doing a little Google Translate right here for the title of this song. Sorry, I had to get it from Spotify so I could copy and paste the text here, because you can't highlight the text. Faint and Faint is the name of the song. Awaku Kasuka. Awaku Kasuka. I think that's how you say that. Awaku Kasuka. There you go. Awaku Kasuka from Sajo no Hana. That song has been stuck in my head for months now. I love that song. And, well, you guys don't know the name of the band yet that I've written for this story, and I'm going to save that. I'm going to save that until the story comes out. But if you want to know what the music is going to be similar to, I'm going to give you 3 songs. I'm going to give you 3 songs that you can listen to if you want to know what the music is going to sound like. So you can listen to that one, Awaku Kasuka from Sajo no Hana, Materlink from Sajo no Hana, and Tento from Sajo no Hana. They're not identical by any means. Not identical by any means. And the singer that I do have for the story has quite a different voice from Sana. Sana, she's got a deeper voice. But our singer, she's got a little bit higher pitched voice. Not in a bad way, just the way her voice naturally is. But I would say, like, the way I've structured the songs is very similar to those 3. So the band is going to sound similar to that, but almost take the Keisoku band style and mix it with Sajo no Hana. And that's the sound that you're kind of going to get. But I don't think the songs that I've been writing really sound similar to Keisoku band at all. I mean, they might, but like not really. I think they're quite different, especially the way they're mixed and mastered. You know, I've talked about this many times, but I'm a professional musician, so I know a lot about production when it comes to music. And the way that Keisoku band songs are mixed and mastered is very different from the style that I've used. Mine is much more, in musical terms, we call this compression, which means quite squished. And then you take the squish sound and then boost the volume of it. So mine is a little bit more bass heavy and crispy, and almost a little cleaner sounding, kind of. I don't know. I've been having this issue lately where I'm like trying to figure out this cracking that's happening in the mix. There's some clipping issues that I've been trying to solve, but maybe that's for the next episode. But yeah, those 3 songs, Awaku, I can't say that word, Kasuka. I know Su becomes like silent in Japanese, so that's why I'm struggling so much. Awaku Kasuka, I think is how you say that. I just listened to the Google Translate lady say it to me. Awaku Kasuka. There you go. Awaku Kasuka from Sajo no Hana, and Tento and Materlink, which I believe they're anime openings, right? Yeah. Is it wrong to pick up girls in a dungeon? I haven't watched that show yet, but I've heard it's quite interesting. So both those songs, Tento and Materlink, are from that series. So if you want to see those songs in action, I guess go ahead and watch that show. But that's what they're from. I'm a big fan of Sana and her music. Sana-chan? Sana-san? Sana-san would be like saying Mr. or Mrs., right? And then Sana-chan would be like, I'm talking to a friend. One of my Japanese people in the comments will let me know about that. I have no idea. All I know is her name is Sana, so I'll go with Sana-san out of respect, but I think that's right. Anyways, because obviously I don't know her, so yeah, so those are the 3 songs that I think my band is going to sound most similar to. But I think that's going to be it for this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching. There was a lot of great things in that episode. I think it was a little more meaningful than the last episode. There was a lot of great things that I talked about in there. So I think next episode, I will definitely talk about the music more and the music production and how I'm making the music. And I will talk about that whole hockey story because that really is a great story. I really do. I didn't love it living through it at the time, but there's a lot of wonderful lessons to learn from that. So, yeah, I think today is going to wrap up here. That was a wonderful, wonderful episode. Thank you guys so much again for listening to this. I encourage you to leave your comments in the comments section. I really do read all of them. There also is the email if you want to write something out a little bit longer and not have it be seen by other people. So yeah, thank you so much to Connor for the email at the beginning that we read. So if you want to submit your emails, guys, please go to the description and submit your emails. There was no songs to play at this point, so we're just playing the intro song again. But yeah, I really enjoyed reading your guys' comments. So I encourage you to leave your comments. And I'm actually going to give you a prompt. I'm going to give you a prompt. Please only send this in the email that I've provided. I don't want to spoil it in the comments section. Because we get so few comments, on these, everyone's probably going to see your comment. So I don't want to spoil it. So if you're going to answer this prompt, please submit it to the email that I've provided in the description. And that is, what is one embarrassing story that has happened to you? And I will give you one of mine in the next episode. That's going to be one of the segments we do in the next episode. So that's my prompt for you. Write me an embarrassing story that happened to you that is quite funny, and we will read it out loud in the next episode. And if you don't want me to say your name, then just say that, but otherwise I will read your name. But other than that, I'll have one prepared for next episode on my end, and then I will read all of your guys, and I'll probably get a kick out of them. So that is your prompt. What is one embarrassing thing that happened to you? And yeah, I guess we'll go over that in the next episode. Thank you guys so much for listening to Maxed Out episode 2. I hope you guys have a great day. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace out.